Hey folks, how are you? Phil Davis, Ancestry Lands, ancestrylands.com. As I'm pulling out of work back on the 9 to 5 grind, leaving the Philly area on this hot day. You know, the weather's heating up and, you know, people are going to come out more activity is going to happen. People tend to liven up in the summertime as we hit the summer. And you all might have seen the videos that I did just recently on the Great Wolf Lodge. Took me and the family out for a grand old time out in Perryville, Maryland. And, you know, again, I showcase in the video things that I'm experiencing, things that I'm showing my children to give you a template, a blueprint on the mindset that is required when you are generating wealth. Am I a wealthy person? By the definition, yes, but by the traditional standards, no. And what I mean by that is that, you know, what I have are assets that I have a liquid form. When I say liquid, I mean that I'm able to sell off or able to gather up capital or money, you know, readily, and that I am liquid. And there are other things that are investments that are in holding, meaning that if I needed an X amount of dollars, I can't utilize that even though my net worth might be with a comma behind it. So, you know, the wealth is in a lot of different ways. A lot of people think that millionaires, for example, you know, they might be worth 10, 20, 30 million dollars, but they only have access to maybe a million or two of them. So it's not that they have access to millions of dollars sitting around like they're Scrooge McDuck. They may only have access to a portion of their total wealth. And that's how wealth works. You know, I have assets that can be liquidated, but it's not meaning that I actually have that large amount of money or wealth sitting around at this point in time. So what's needed, and I had a conversation with a gentleman earlier, shout out to you, Mr. Macklemore. The mindset of wealth is what is needed more importantly than wealth itself. And when I say that, I mean that a lot of times wealth is squandered, wealth is lost. And if wealth is left to younger generations, you know, your descendants a lot of times will lose wealth. And that's something that happens all too commonly through, you know, children infighting with the states, not having trust, not having wills, not having things set up so that way money can be distributed in a way so as not to cause conflict when an estate, you know, when someone that is wealthy passes. And that's something that's critical is estate planning, wealth management. And that's why the mindset is needed as well. Not only with the wealth accumulator, the person who's generating the wealth, it also needs to be within the person that is going to be receiving the wealth recipient. Also needs to have the right mindset to be able to, how can we say, grow, manage the wealth, so that way it is not lost in that time of transfer. And a lot of time wealth is lost through things like probate because people didn't have the proper estate planning, people did not have the right mechanisms in place. They lost it through taxes, they lost it through property taxes, they didn't keep up with the property taxes. Wealth is lost in a lot of different ways, or people just simply don't manage it. You know, a lot of times when an estate is created, and when I say estate, I'm talking about in the life insurance type terms, where a person passes away and the estate, the amount of wealth that is now on the table to be utilized or inherited, now is creating an estate. Once that estate is created, a lot of times people think that, oh, you know, dad's got $5 million, and they're not aware of that the estate needs to be settled first. And if you're asking about life insurance, you know, why are you speaking on something like that? I am an actual licensed life insurance producer in multiple states. I am, including the state that I reside in. I'm licensed in multiple states, so this is something that I am licensed, state licensed, and certified to speak on. And a lot of times when the state is created, a lot of people don't know that the estate needs to be settled. Lawyers have to get paid. Any business dealings, if you have a business, those need to be settled. Those accounts, receivables and payables need to be settled first. It is not something that everyone can just start taking money from. Bills need to be settled. Mortgages need to be paid off. Debts need to be made whole. They need to be, debts need to be, the debts need to be paid off, pretty much. That's how that works. And that's before anyone else gets their cut. And then lastly, the lawyer has to get their cut, which sometimes can be the biggest part of the pie. But what you got a lot of times is when an estate is created, the heathens come out, the fighting begins, and everybody starts grabbing at the bag to take a piece of their pie. And not realizing that the pie is going to be smaller than whatever the estate numerical value is at the time that the estate is created, when the money now is put into possession to be inherited. And a lot of people don't understand that because, again, this is not taught, because this would coincide with your wealth mentality. You would have to have someone tell you this or raise you and inform you of this information, because most of the time people are seeking to create wealth unless people are learning how to manage or even build wealth, true build wealth, you know. And again, when you're building wealth, there is a part of where you inherit it to as well. That's the math on wealth. You got a lot. What do they say? 85% of millionaires and billionaires are first generation millionaires now recently. Well, those people have a job to do in making sure that wealth is distributed down or going to be inherited in a way that wealth can continue on throughout the bloodline, or else pretty much it's kind of worthless. You're a person who's created wealth, but you weren't able to pass on wealth. You created, but generational wealth was not able to be achieved. So again, the formula is weak. It's a failure in formula. It really is. So what are you tasked with when that is the case? Is that you have to raise the children up with a mindset. And I've spoken about this before. When you have the mindset, you don't necessarily need them to be able to inherit a business or be business minded, because you don't have to be a business person in order to manage money. You don't. You can be really good at managing money if you have the right skills, or you have the right people around you, and you know how to utilize them in that way. You could have accountants, and you could have all these systems in place to make sure that your wealth is being created, and all you need to do is keep an eye on it and make sure that no one's stealing or misappropriating those resources. Correct? It's very simple. But a lot of times the wealth management is not passed down. People aren't being taught how to create IULs and life insurance policies to be put into trust once they're paid out and an estate is being created. A lot of people just say you got a lot of businesses and put them all into a trust. But again, you need a sizable estate in order to do that. Otherwise, you're kind of wasting your time. And again, you have to have your children, your descendants, the inheritors of the wealth, their mentality needs to be somewhat aligned to receiving wealth. So you can give a lot of people, that's why you got the term hood rich. You got people out there that you could give them $1 million today and they'll end up broke tomorrow. So again, money doesn't equate to the fact that you are able to you're going to be rich because you got $1 a day. And if that's the case, why is it that we have the curse of the lottery? Just to prove my point, edify my point a little bit more. All those lottery winners who win millions and millions of dollars and end up being broke inside of years. And this also happens with celebrities, football players, because the mentality to be raised around how to manage and handle money, you got to be groomed for that. Now, without pontificating my point and getting up here and preaching on my soapbox, I'll tell you where I've made my mistakes at. One is that I was never really taught about wealth because I didn't come from wealth. I came from a middle-class family that was of the old model where you work and you end up saving, you get a pension, which those things are not done anymore. So realistically, the pension model wasn't effective of a model to rely on, because honestly, there are very few pensions left out in the world. So I wasn't even taught the example of the economy which I was going to be working in. And that's no shot to my parents. It just is what it is. Understanding what a 401k was not something that I went through my 20s really understanding how to utilize and manage that. What a 401k was, the concept of free money, the what is that called? Where your company, they chip in. They give you a match. That's what it is. Match. Thank you. Employer match. To understand how to utilize that money in a way to help increase my stock holdings, my portfolio. Because when you really look at a 401k, it's an aspect of the portfolio that you're building. But you have to be taught that. And that I wasn't taught that. I was taught basic checkbooking, which when digital checkbook systems or digital online banking came about, it really made the checkbook obsolete. So I was at a time where I was going out into the workforce, not understanding credit, not understanding banking and real financial management, because again, I didn't come from that type of family. So now I'm creating that, and the process has to be passed down. It can't just live and die with me, and I'm Big Willie Phil sitting up on the hill with all his Bucks and Benjamins. You can't be that way. You've got to be able to pass that down to your children. And one of the things you have to do is make them desensitized to money. I lived where things were always tight. You couldn't spend $5 in the house because money was tight. You didn't have any luxury. You didn't have any ability to have a certain amount of cash because you're always cash strapped, because we lived house poor. We had a nice big house, but we didn't have liquid money where you could spend $100 on a weekend and it wasn't a big thing. Those kind of situations would cause arguments and turmoil because we were so house poor that we weren't living where we had liquidity that I talked about. Being able to have cash reserves. Everything went towards the house. And when you have that, when you get money, when you get out and you start making $50,000, $60,000 or $100,000, you start to blow through it because you're not trained in how to handle money. You never had $100 in a bank. You never had your own bank or savings account because, again, all money was hoarded in the effort for the main goal. Where my children now, they have their own money. Before they were 10 years old, they had their own money. The concept of savings is taught. The concept of checking and balancing is taught, but it's not checking and balancing on my account, it's checking and balancing their accounts, where they got to manage their income that they're being paid. You see all these people driving very dangerously like they're the only ones on the road. Jeez, man, this is crazy. And not only that, they see the business. They see the fruits of the labor. They see the Great Wolf Lodge. They compared it to the Cape May. If you've seen the videos where we've gone to Cape May a couple years ago, this is our first vacation in a while. They get these experiences. When they go out to like Great Wolf Lodge, when we went, they were responsible for paying for certain purchases. It wasn't all on Dad's dime. They had to pay for some entertainment too, because they have money they can utilize. They have situations where they run out of money, where they have to borrow, and how I discourage that borrowing because now they're put in debt. So they're in situations where their real life situations occur, and they're now taught these life lessons on how you improperly do not manage your money, or you haven't created opportunities to earn more money. You haven't done anything to increase your income. You relied on a paycheck from Dad because you worked, and your paycheck cuts you short when times of plenty are needed. When you need time to be able to make or utilize more capital, you don't have it because you didn't find ways to earn more money. You haven't created a value. And these micro concepts are exposed to the children. They're imprinted upon them, so that way it won't be the first time they've seen it when they're adults. They would have had at least a practice run. They would have had an example that I can draw from in their childhood that they've experienced growing up from adolescence, or I'm sorry, a young child into adolescence, to be able to learn. A lot of parents don't do that. You got mom and dad's account that you could just spend endlessly on, but at the same time, you don't get any real world experience. So you give them a mock, M-O-C-K, real world experience through allowing them to understand fully the life lessons and the journey of money management. You give them times where you put them up that their income is down to a low amount, and now they've got to use some critical thinking. They've got to use situational awareness to understand, hey, this is an opportunity to buy something I want, but it's not something I need. What decision am I going to make? And they're able to kind of look at their spending habits or their internal habits. And again, I've seen my kids do this, man. I've seen them stop spending. I have. Now their spending sometimes comes on like, the Great Wolf Lodge, where, again, they nickel and dime you for everything. It's a great experience, but I wouldn't go to the Great Wolf Lodge if I was going to be worried about what I was going to spend. When I say that, I don't mean that I'm just going to blow it all like I'm Daddy Warbucks here. I'm saying it more so that you don't go there thinking that you're going to try to do it on the cheap dollar. It's not going to happen. They're going to get you some way, somehow. So you might as well go to enjoy yourself and make sure that you've saved up enough to have a good time. And that's exactly what we went to do, to have a good time. But even that experience, my children understand that that is a reward for the hard work which we put in, working and growing the channel and getting our channel up to where it is, where I could present to viewers like you. And it's also done by the back end work that I've done years ago, setting up a real estate company and a business that can still thrive even in low economic downturns. When we have times like this where inflation is high, building a business model that offers value through the financial leverage that I'm able to utilize in offering people properties without interest or credit checks, and becoming an author, writing a book on land investing and building wealth through land ownership, and getting people to understand the basics of land by my book, Getting Dollars from Dirty, Beginner's Guide to Vacant Land Investing. And the question people have, because they see me doing all these different hats, they always want to know, am I still doing land? And the answer is always yes. Because when I said generational wealth, my children are learning about what land has always provided me, and they can see it. They know it now. So I don't lose my children because of my relationships being up and down or whatever else. My children can see through my actions, not just my words. And so with that, they get to take the experience with the lesson. And that's what you got to give them, the experience with the lesson. It's not enough just to give them the lesson through orating and teaching your kids these meaningful things or wisdoms of knowledge. You have to be able to give them the experience in combination with the lesson. And that's what you're seeing me do. I'm trying to give you the blueprint and understanding this because, again, they see my money habits. I'll give you a great example. The other day, my daughter, she had got money for her birthday, and I'm asking her, I'm like, hey, why is your, they have a ledger book, and I'm like, well, why is your ledger so low when you got money for your birthday just a few days ago? And she says, well, I didn't get busy. I got busy, whatever else. And this is a 10-year-old now. And I'm like, you ain't got no job. You going to school. You off on the weekends. Like, free nights. Free nights. Well, like, what do you mean you're too busy? And again, her mind was not on her money, and money was not on her mind. And so now I'm pressing her. And again, it's like you're telling me in 10 days you didn't get time to do this. How? She didn't make the time. And that had to be a hard lesson for her to learn, that she needs to be about her square in her business. And I asked her, I said, would you ever have seen a day where I would have let that go? When my clients send me payments, it don't matter if I'm at the Great Wolf Lodge or I'm at the lodge being dined on by wolves. I'm still going to send that confirmation to them, because people don't play when it comes to their money, and neither should you. You should be about your business. If I'm out and about and a client sends me a payment, say I'm sending you email shortly. That confirmation will get out to you shortly. I'm just not in a place where I can do that right now. And I let them know. I'm going to get you your balance promptly. When it's time to make a payment, I don't care if I'm short for what I got to do. The team gets paid. It's never late. It's always on time. So you got to be about your business, but your wealth habits, your mindset, your children will follow. If you got bad money habits, your children, they will follow. So I'm going to leave it at that and tell you again, you must educate the mind about wealth, as well as building good habits. But again, you got to give them the lesson with the experience. And you can't do one or the other. You got to give them the lesson with the experience. Excuse me, the experience. They need that both, because your children will sometimes remember what you say, but they will always remember what you did. Don't forget, folks, go to ancestrylands.com to get some property, folks. Remember, you either own property or you'll be owned as property. And don't forget, the link in the description box below has a link to my book, Getting Dollars from Dirt, A Beginner's Guide to Vacant Land Investing. Make sure you go and get a copy of that and get yourself some education and understanding what land is all about. And believe me, it will definitely bring some value to you guys. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. I'm your host, Philip Davis. I hope you've been educated, enlightened, and least of all, entertained. Take care, and I'm out.
Are you confused with today's real estate market? With high interest rates and overpriced housing, it can be hard to find something to own at the right price. Available on Amazon, Getting Dollars from Dirt by author Philip H. Davis is a game-changing book that invites you to embark on a thrilling exploration of this often overlooked asset class. This book is your roadmap to unlocking the secrets of vacant land investment. Inside these pages, you will uncover the transformative power of vacant land as a wealth-building tool. Discover how to spot promising properties, assess their true value, and capitalize on market trends. From understanding zoning and permits to leveraging financing strategies, you will gain the knowledge and confidence to make savvy investment decisions. With each page you turn, you will gain a deeper understanding of the profound impact your investments can have on the world around you. Getting Dollars from Dirt is not just a guidebook, it's a call to action. Whether you're a seasoned investor or a curious novice, this book will empower you to tap into the immense potential of vacant land and embark on a journey toward financial freedom and a brighter future.